Let me see if I can pick this up. Good morning. I'm just trying to do something today slightly different. I've got a laptop here and I'm going to try and see the comments on a big screen, which will help. And I'm it's a bit of a glare in here. Anyway, I do hope that you're well. Really, I do. I woke up at 4 this morning and I didn't get myself a beer. Just cover that because I don't need to see my face twice. Thanks for coming by. I should probably say a few thank yous. Yesterday's live stream got cut because of battery issues. I'm propping my phone up on a bag of rolled oats. It's very high tech here. Thanks to my mate Clint for bringing his clippers up to me the other day. Mine are in storage, so I was able to give myself a haircut. He brought some other things. A good supporter. Despite being a very fearful person who thinks that a cough or a friend could have a virus that could hurt them. I want to thank Sharon and her son Matt for their hospitality for the 8 weeks that we spent parked up next to their house in Lincoln. I want to thank my friend Ian for his contribution to that end. And I probably should have written down who I wanted to say thank you to. But we're in Norfolk now, and I should say thank you to Nigel and Simon for their part in that. I mean, we stayed at this place, Letton Hall. You may have seen the video I did yesterday of the sheep we saved in the field, and so you would have seen that I'm back at this place, Letton Hall, and we're here for another week. Why I like Letton Hall is because it's such a tranquil place. I think this is a mud flood home building. I did that video on it a few months ago where I looked at all the sort of some of the hidden stuff, and I suggest that this building offers some interesting clues as to how they've hidden the old world buildings, the pre-flood buildings. I don't talk about mud flood because I think it's something to fear. I think it's just something as part of the truth of where we are, who we are, and what's gone on before. I mean, mud flood is a bit like the flat Earth conversation now for me, in that it's become not redundant, because I think we are required to know as much as we can about the world that we live in our home. But equally, we are moving into these sort of end time, or this apocalypse time, in which the details of those sort of things need to take should take a back seat to the more important aspects of what this means, what 2020 is, what your our lives are about, why we're here, and what our opportunities are, or our mission is. I'm a bit slow. I've been awake since 4, as I said. It's 6:30 now. And I've been, for the last day or so, had a headache. And I had a bit of a sore throat yesterday, but that's abated. Now, don't tell the doctors, because they will probably try and put me in hospital. Andrea and others say that these feelings of headache or tightness are a part of the ascension energy, the changing earth energy. And I heard someone say the other day that the Schumann resonance, the resonance, the vibration of the earth is is the same as the vibration in your brain. It's like they're connected, because we are of the earth. And so perhaps this changing energy is causing this effect. And this effect is being felt by many people, but it is being excused by the mainstream narrative as a part of some virus. So that's all negative, as opposed to something that's really positive, that's really empowering. So I'm just riding through it. But right now my brain isn't in full speed. I had said I was going to go live again yesterday, and I never got that opportunity. And I'm keen to stay in touch with you, stay in touch with this channel, and my ability to offer something for those who find it useful. But as I was saying, this place, Letton Hall, is a very tranquil place. We're far away from car noise. Where we were in Lincoln, we were right next to a very busy, very fast road. I mean, it was 20 paces, if that, from the van to an extremely fast road. And so the cars would come past at 100 kilometers an hour. Voo, voo. Yeah. There was no gate, no way of, it was always my concern that Alexander might get, but just the noise, and the closeness of the people. We're starting our live. It's been a tough night. Alexander didn't sleep well last night. Perhaps he's also been troubled by the energies. Interestingly, we had Simon and Courtney come and visit us yesterday. You saw Simon on the video with a sheep, and they brought their daughter Mia, who's about 9 months old, and we realized then that how much Alexander is so used to having my undivided attention, or our undivided attention, that it's difficult for him to kind of see me or be around and not have me give him my undivided attention, and entertaining him for his own needs. But we will. He doesn't have friends. He doesn't have little friends to play with, and in a way, I'm his primary playmate. When we were in Lincoln, Ian's dog was his best friend, and I got video of them rolling around on the floor together and having a lot of fun, and that was lovely. But this place here is quiet and is peaceful, and really allows for me to center myself. And wherever you are, I hope that you're able to find a similar kind of peacefulness, because these are challenging times. Morning, honey.
Oh, morning.
Yeah, it was a bit of a broken night.
Yeah, I had lots of dreams.
I was surprised when I got up and it was 4 a.m.
Wow.
And you know what is interesting is that I reckon that it was light. I mean, the sun wasn't crested, but it was light, so light, like it was daytime. And it's 4 a.m. Now the clocks are, they fiddle with the clocks, so it truly it's 3 a.m. Which is crazy to think that. Anyway, I won't go into the flat Earth proofs.
No, please don't. We're not.
I was just saying, I think all of that, and my friend Dave over in, I think he's in New Jersey, or New York, he, Zoom Truth, he was saying in his comment to me from yesterday's live that this fight or flight thing is the only two options in town. You're either going to be scared, which he really doesn't want to be, or you're going to fight against this beast. Do you mind?
I'm sorry.
So, yeah, so, I'm saying to Dave and to others of his mindset, because I come from that same mindset. As you know, I've been out in the street fighting for people to wake up, for people to learn more about this system. But what they're doing with Corona is they're creating such a moment of impetus for people to naturally wake themselves. And I'm feeling that. I'm feeling a few people that I've spoken to who've been unwilling to go onto flat Earth, even go to 9/11 or any of these things, that this draconian, dystopian situation that we're finding ourselves in is causing them to stop and think. So, in a way, I can't see how me getting in the fight that they've created, that the system has created, is actually going to benefit me. However, when people themselves, because it is about themselves, discover that there are truths that they've never realized, then they are going to be looking to voices and people to offer them insight. And if you think about the fight or flight paradigm, then that insight is either going to be, yes, stay at home, be fearful, or go out and fight and scream and shout at the beast and say, please change, when in that case, the system created this. So why would it ever want to change this? It might offer some concessions. It might offer some inducements, some furlough money, some handouts and so on. But it's going to come at a price. And I think my journey, and Andrea will tell you, she's really sometimes had to bash me over the head with this. My journey has been one of initially ignorance, or not willing to look at it, or whatever, then looking at it, then being angry with it, and wanting to do something, and going out there and doing that something, has given me this insight that the system wants you to get up, and it wants you to realize that you're being screwed, but it wants you to be, in the first instance, cowed by it, and in the second instance, angry and reactionary against it. Because in both those cases, you are giving the beast some kind of respect, some kind of kudos, for being what it is. Whether you hate it or love it, you are, or go along with it. Thank you.
Can I
Yeah, just give me a second. Oh, I see. Astro Kings. Yeah, Keith. Spherical World. Thank you,
Mark?
Mark. Yeah, hey Mark. Make sure that the girl at the party who never lets you get a word in edgewise. Our kingdom is not of this world, or else we would fight the beast. Yeah, we don't. And that's the thing, is that, the antagonist, the bully in the class, he really wants you to pay him attention. If you ignore him, that's really like the worst thing for him, And then he will try harder and harder to get your attention. And I think that this is what this is. And I think that's why what you will see, Dave, Zoom Truth, and others, see Jeranism's still kind of on the, we've got to go out and protest. Now, I'm in a way, I'm not scared of the protest, and I've been like itching to get the megaphone out and do some shouting and so on, and I can't be sure that I won't find myself in some kind of protest situation at some point. But really, my protest is not to, firstly, let's say that the protest that's coming and the uprising and the anger that's coming is by design. So make no mistake that if you're out there protesting, you're doing exactly what they want, exactly what the system wants. You're begging it to be different, you're demanding that it changes, and you're feeding it your energy. So you're giving it kudos, you're giving it credit, you're honoring it by getting out there and demanding that it change. You're giving it its life, you're giving it its place, and saying, oh yeah, you are the guy who makes the decisions, and I'm going to appeal to you to change your mind and go in a different direction. They want this. They very much want you angry, and they want you uprising, and the uprising is coming, and it will be big. And the lockdown or the clampdown on that will be unpleasant, and that will create more anger, more resentment, and more of that yin yang fighting against the system. I'm always reminded when I talk about the yin yang is that there's a black and a white, but the yin yang has a little line. Let's call it gray, a gray line that separates the black and the white, and that's the third way that I'm seeking. That's the narrow path, and as Mark says, our kingdom. And if my kingdom up here is so fascinated by the system that I think I need to appeal to it one way or the other, then I'm in their kingdom, Satan's kingdom, the fallen kingdom, whatever. And I want to take that back. But it is, as I say, competing for my attention, and it is done, and the COVID thing is far more attention grabbing than flat Earth. Whilst it's fundamental and perhaps foundational that we live on some kind of electromagnetic plane or a torus system or whatever, these are things that perhaps we're not here to know for sure. These are things that we will know when we leave this life in this body. But what I'm certain of now is that we are being afforded an opportunity to check ourselves, to review the world that we live in, and decide for ourselves the path that we would like to choose to take. So I am, what I'm doing, what I'm hoping to do. I remember in the early days of flat Earth activism, I felt like, I'm super passionate about flat Earth, and if you've watched this channel long enough, you would have seen me in the street being absolutely engaged in spreading that word, spreading that message. But I did feel at the time, and I was thinking about this last night because it came back to me, that at the time I felt like what I was doing in going out and being an activist, and particularly in the flat Earth, because it was a new area of research, a new area of truth, and I was a latecomer to the seeking truth. I was far back behind the likes of Dave Murphy and Rob Skeebers and all these people who'd been talking about other things long before the flat Earth came to their attention. So they'd already created, people like this had already created a voice for themselves. And in a way, I felt like flat Earth was going to offer me that opportunity to be a voice. Because if, for example, you went into the 9/11 movement, for say, as I did many years after the movement started, I would have been a tiny voice and never would have seen the light of day. Whereas with Flat Earth, it gave me the opportunity to stand on a soapbox and get people's attention. But perhaps I felt at the time that it wasn't always going to be just about Flat Earth, that it was the beginning of something much bigger. So Flat Earth gave me the platform. It gave me the opportunity to develop my confidence and an approach in which I could reach people. And I went into Flat Earth like a lot of folks, quite angry at the deception. And I let that show. And in a way, just like my experience in war in Angola, I feel that those experiences that I had, or those experiences that I was willing to tough out, will lend me a credibility when I say to folks, I don't think you need to fight. Because I'm not saying I don't think you need to fight because I'm fearful. Evidenced by me standing in Speaker's Corner, having people come at me hard, and being willing to take that. I mean, Andres, she will tell you that, the times that she was in Speaker's Corner and people would walk away or get out of earshot, and the things she'd hear them say about me, sometimes they said it to my face. But when I was in Angola, I'm obviously sad for all the loss of life in war and all the loss of life that I was party to. But those who were with me in war will know that I prosecuted war with absolute conviction, with absolute dedication to the cause, not a man of fear. when I wrote my book, the book on it, I sent a copy to the gunner, the guy who sat next to me in the turret for that year, those 3 months on the front line. And after not having spoken to him for 30 years, he said, if I ever had to go back into war again, it would be with you on my side, with you at my side. And as you may already have heard me say before, that I discovered when I was writing the book, someone said, have you ever gotten your medals from? No, I'd never even thought about it really. Or I had thought about it, but I'd not done anything about it. I applied for my medals, and it turned out I'd been awarded a special medal for bravery. I think it's why if you've seen my book cover, it has my name and then the MMM, which stands for Military Merit. You're able to, not that I don't do that now, but I put it on the military book at the time because I was appealing to military-minded people. But I say all this really to underscore that I'm not a guy fearful of facing the beast. I'm not. And this is the flat earth activism is my evidence of that, or my demonstration of that conviction and that courage. And I'm going to use that evidence to say to people, friends, brothers and sisters, that I'm a guy who's willing to stand in the trenches and face what has to be faced. But now I see that there is a third way, and is not a lack of courage that causes me to choose or seek out that third way. It is in fact a desire to achieve that most difficult of things, and that is to survive and thrive without the need of the beast. I'm not going to ask the beast for more money. I'm not going to ask the beast for a change in its policies on social distancing, because it's never going to give us those things, no matter how brave, how courageous, and how much you're willing to sacrifice. So I'm hopeful that the character that I am, that you are able to elicit from this relationship across the screens, through the ether, serves as like a beacon to you, to say you don't need to demonstrate your courage by standing against the beast. Perhaps you need to demonstrate your courage by being able to walk away from the beast. And that's where we plan to go. That's where, when we put ourselves through, where I stopped wanting to go to a 9-to-5 in the beast system, where we put ourselves through all these financial difficulties over the last years, made ourselves homeless 8 months ago, became homeless 8 months ago, has been about saying, no, I'm not going to participate in the game anymore. Not out of fear, not from a lack of courage, but in fact from an ever increasingly clear perspective that our place is to become sovereign, is to no longer need to suckle from the teat of the beast in any way, as much as possible. And this is our journey, this is our trajectory, and my learning, my teaching, my offering to you, to those who hear me, is to begin that walk, that narrow path between the dark and the light, in the yin-yang example. It doesn't have to happen overnight, but it does come with this realization that you're standing in the face of a snowball that's rolling down the hill. And the right approach, or the best approach in my view, is to step out of the way and make your own, do your own thing, build your own snowball. And from that, wonderful things will come for you and for those around you, I'm sure. It won't be easy, but it's not meant to be. The easy path is to ask the beast to pay you a bit more money, to give you a bit more freedom, but to allow you to have your cable TV and your 50-inch flat screen TV. I listened to Martin Kenny's latest offering last night, and I highly recommend that you give it a listen if you haven't already. But Martin, he chided me a year and a half ago, maybe, on Sun and Moon show, where I was like, I can't remember. I was trying to refine the Taurus model. I called it the Trinity Taurus model. I think it's a 2-year-old video now. You have to go back far on my channel. But I had this Taurus model idea, this triple Taurus, because everyone talks about 2 Tauruses or whatever, and for me the secretion thing in the middle was like a third Taurus, that the 2 3s back to back, or an 8 infinity surrounding them, and I was trying to push this out, and as you know, recently perhaps I was trying to refine the 8 inches per mile squared thing, which I still think the 8 inches is disinfo. Anyway, the point is that these are all like material, or these are all like the minutiae, the detail, and the devil is in the detail. These are the minutiae of the beast system. It's part of their disinfo program, it's part of their mind control program, and so on. So you can continue to vexate over all these deceptions. You can continue to vexate over the dystopian reality we're starting to find ourselves in. Or you can perhaps seek to create your own harmonious world. It's not for me to say what you do, but I am encouraging you. And again, I'm not coming from a point of fear or lack of courage, but in fact, it's just love and compassion and understanding for the way that this world is, but that there is an option for us, an alternative for us, another way. Andrea's itching to get in.
Only because you talk about the beast and you talk about bravery, and actually there's a different kind of bravery and there's a different kind of beast, because if there's this macrocosm and microcosm, if there's this so within, so without, as above, so below, we have to realize we have our own beast, and that's something that from my experience, and I think Dave would agree from his experience, doing the inward journey, and most of that, although it's been an ongoing thing, but most of that has happened since we left our home, because we could detach from the material the material world in some senses and be free to have that space to. It didn't always feel like that, but sometimes you really need to be pushed against the wall to kind of face these things. And that's where the bravery is. The bravery is facing those things. You know, people say all the time, you need to go inward. And what does that mean? What does that going inward mean? Yes, it is about finding your spirit, your soul, your higher self. But how do you unearth that higher self, that spirit, that soul? And I think that's where the bravery comes, because I believe that part of this whole system is not just something they've been doing for the last 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. It's something where our souls are born with, and we start to suffer trauma at the hands of the system, and that's a generational thing. And you know, trauma is not just the extreme trauma. It can be very small things. I think the trauma can start in utero, where, you know, the vibration that the mother is getting affects the child. And I think then thereafter, you know, we're, as humans, we're taught all these ways to parent, or we come with our own set of damaged belief systems or programming when it comes to the way that we parent, and then we're affecting the next soul along. You know, one of the examples is we're told very early that our child needs to sleep in a separate bed. So we even have this cage-like cot that we stick the baby in, and then say, okay, well, you have to sleep over there away from us, which is a trauma. You know, babies are not meant to be able to self-soothe at a very young age, and so we control cry our child, and they then will only stop, not because they've been trained, but because they realize that no one's coming. That's a trauma. And so then the rest of your life you are experiencing different traumas that added onto that, and that becomes the beast. And from that beast, the external world you will pull in the experiences, or you'll be attracted to the experiences. And this is how the system externally operates. It can work on the trauma. We were talking about, you know, all the people at the moment are the people of the Second World War, and we've met enough to know that they suffered trauma. They suffered trauma. And I'm not even talking about the ones on the front line. I'm talking about the little girl that was at home. Maybe her daddy was not there, or
never came home,
or never came home, or simply that they knew that there were these people fighting against them. You know, a bit like now, where these little children know that there's this invisible virus, or people are their enemy. And so people carry this trauma. What is it our sole purpose to come here and confront that trauma, or remember who we are, and confront the beast? The beast is within. And so the bravery, I think, is about going inward. And Dave can sit here now. He can sit here now and say, I can do this out of love. But he's had to be brave and confront that inner beast. You know, have we still got more to do on that? For sure. But that's where the bravery comes. And that's where the detachment from the external beast comes, because it's, you know, to not have them have power over you anymore, you have to have confronted your own and found those fundamental essences of yourself, like bravery, courage, love, humility, all those beautiful qualities that we have as beings, and that's where the power is. The power is in our soul, in our in remembering who we are and finding those essences of our true selves, and then you don't need to fight the beast. Or certainly you then have the eyes to see the beast and the choices. You have choices. So I think that's the reason I was itching to talk, is because I that the bravery, I think, has come from being willing to go inward, which is why we've been quiet a lot recently, because we've been compelled or drawn to go and look at the inner beast. So yes, we have been fighting in a sense, but we've been fighting. Okay, my baby. We've been fighting the beast within, so that the beast without or outward is no longer has that power. And then you start to find those true essences, that unconditional love for yourself, compassion for yourself, so that you can start to make decisions that are based on that, rather than on that inner fear. People go, "Oh, I don't fear anything." Well, I would question that.
Cool. Well, as you see, Alexander's joined us. I wanted to read out, Andrea and I were talking about the consciousness, and mentioned it yesterday, and I came across this really good description of the 3D, 4D, and 5D consciousness, and I found that as a touchstone to understand the potential journey that we have here, and the potential consciousness, like up-leveling, that's available, if you like. It really helped me to clarify this idea that we are, if we are to take this journey of heightened consciousness, and some say Christ consciousness, but heightened consciousness, then we do need to realize the trick, or the deception, or the nature of living in 3D and living in that kind of material. It's all about gathering of possessions, job titles, and so on, versus...
Can I just stop before you carry on? Spark is talking about he can't help but feel that doing the inner work is selfish, and when humanity needs us, that the truth about what is going on, they need to know the truth about what's going on in the world, and they critically need to wake up the sleeping sheep. Okay,
well, let me respond to that. Okay, so let's say that I was wanting to build an army, a real army, a war kind of army, with guns and things. Then to be a leader in that army, to be a colonel or a commander or whatever in that army, I would need to exemplify all the best aspects of being an army dude, being a war dude, right? So what would I do? I would practice my gunnery, I would practice my drill stuff, my fitness stuff. I would, all of the necessary things to be Rambo, okay? And once I was that Rambo character, then I would be a great example to the younger recruits that were coming in to join my army. In this case, I feel absolutely, Spark, that unless I am that higher consciousness being, if I'm living it, unless I'm being it, then I'm never going to be the good example to my recruits, to use the analogy that I'm working with. So I'm totally on with the view that we are one humanity, but my example to humanity is what I'm saying is that I'm not going to be someone who my example is yeah, you've got to go and fight the system. I think that, to use the example of Jesus, he showed by his way, his being, that the higher, whether or not you believe in Jesus as a real living character isn't the discussion so much as the example is what we strive for. The example is what we hold up in high esteem. So if I was out in the streets saying, tear the government down, demand that they change, and do all of this stuff, but at the same time saying, we need to be these higher-minded, loving beings, that would be a conflict in being. So you see, if you're ever going to practice medicine, for example, well, you're going to, before you can receive patients who you want to heal, you're going to have to know your stuff, and you're going to have to inner standard if you're going to be the best doctor that someone could have. So for me, if all I do is I focus on what the system, the beast, has prepared me for, my whole education, TV, all of that has tried to prepare me to be the fighter, or in some people's case, the flighter. Cause people to be fearful and so on. If that's the example that I'm going to live by, and then that's how I'm going to exemplify myself, then I'm not going to be a very good commander. I'm not going to be much of a Rambo. If Rambo was saying, "Come on, you got to run, you got to get fit, you got to do all this, you got to do all of that," but he was lying in his tent, drinking bottles of rum and womanizing and doing all of this sort of stuff, well, the example that he would show to his recruits would quickly undermine everything that he was trying to achieve. So no, I disagree, Spark. I think that we have to be the best. That doesn't mean, you see, seeking out the higher way of being for yourself doesn't mean you care less about the trajectory of humanity. In fact, I think it means that you probably find ways to care and have greater compassion. You find ways to care and love more, and do those things that need to be done to create that loving army, to create that loving situation. So no, I think it's a great point, and I'm really glad you raise it, because it's important that I express that, and I express the same to Dave, Zoom Truth, because he is a very angry guy. I love him, but he's a very angry guy, and sometimes my toes would curl up a few years ago watching him, or a year or so, watching him in the streets, the Holocaust and all of this sort of stuff, really trying to rile people up, really allowing his anger to be vented and so on. And I think we're just playing into their hands. And actually, if Dave was to recruit, and, I really want for Dave to have the best possible outcome in his life. I'm definitely not disrespecting. I have much respect for him. But I know that we've all been keyed up. We've all had the movies. We've all had the programming to be this angry, to be like, fuck this system. We have to change it and so on. And I think, well, I know now that this is part of the deception. This is part of the clever trick. And I think that if Dave was to build an army around him, it would be like-minded people who are equally willing to stand at the gates of the White House, or in Whitehall at 10 Downing Street, or where is it you Aussies have? Is it Canberra? To go there and demand that your jailer, that your prisoner, that your master be a little bit nicer. So he's going to, in that way, you will draw in the kind of energies that you are reflecting out. So if I want angry people around me, then then that anger, if I'm angry, then that's what I will draw in. If I want loving people around me, and then I need to be that. I need to be that loving, compassionate
But this
soul.
goes back to what I was saying, because actually underneath anger is hurt, and hurt is normally because you have been hurt. And so when you think about the system, it's been it's been working on this
For eons.
And so the sleeping sheep, as you put it, which I don't particularly like because I think it's quite derogative, and is actually people who are being mind controlled through trauma, and until they are able to confront the trauma, they will still believe their oppressor. They talk about this being like the Stockholm syndrome, where people are believing that their abuser is loves them, and so you don't wake them up with the truth of information. They have to find it in their hearts and their souls, and also it comes down to accountability. We have to be accountable, and Dave and I said the other day, one thing that's so apparent is that we are so detached from our knowing of being part of something divinely beautiful, because if we did, then none of this would be able to be carried out, because we'd know that our bodies and our minds and our souls are that beautiful and that divinely made, that this wouldn't be able to carry out.
Use the example of fear, right? In the example of fear, if you were a parent and you were saying to your children, fear, 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 all the fear messages from Corona, you were passing that on. Well, what example do you think? How are they going to be? Are they not going to be fearful? Or if you were standing in front of the TV or standing in the street shouting, screaming and hollering at this system, then you would teach your children that that's the way we affect change. We vote, we protest, we demand, and then, at the end of the day, we get a Donald Trump. Or we get whoever, whatever clown you want to put in, and so, you continue a cycle of either fear or anger, and in a way we actually traumatize our children. If in a way, Alexander seeing me sort of shouting in the street as he has is possibly a traumatic. But if what he sees me doing is loving people, hugging people, having people embrace me, helping people, then what example, what is that going to encourage in him? If I allowed him to watch violent movies, for example, is that going to damage him? Which is why I made a big noise a few years ago. Some of you might have seen me with the loud hailer, Harry, John Smith Globeli, and Roxanne were with me, and I'm going, I quit my pornography, and all this sort of stuff, because these are things that sort of, damage the mind. And if I didn't address those things, if I didn't change those things, then I couldn't stand here in all truth, honesty, look you in the eye, and tell you what I think and offer you what I'm suggesting. So, I think it's an important part of the journey. When we lose someone, we go through those 4 stages of grief, and the anger is definitely a part of that. So
you can get stuck there, though.
Yeah. So through video making, through hopefully when I have the sort of time and space to blog, do writings and so on that people can pass on to other people, then that, and even going into a public square, or I was saying to Andrea, I could imagine the other day, I could imagine us starting to do like a round of town hall talks in the future, where you go and speak to people that have started to break through the anger, and seek for something else, then what example am I going to be? And if all I'm doing is tear down this system, I'm going to be contributing the energy exactly as the system wants, is because they want you standing at the gate demanding change, because it just gives them the impetus to do something different, do something else. Again, I come back to this third way and say, hey, well, if I can offer you an exemplar of how you could have a wonderful, a good life, an honorable life, a fulfilling and soulful life, I can only do that because I've done it myself. I could only say that to you because I've done it myself. I can only tell you to turn off the porn because I've done it myself. So that's really, I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to express it like that, and I feel more and more sure about that. I don't mind that someone says, you know what, he's not angry enough for me. He's not doing enough mega horn stuff for me anymore. That's fine. I don't. There's no expectation on anyone to follow. But I know that if I am going to be a light, a guide, a leader, someone that people can look to and say, hey, maybe that's what I want for myself, then I want them not to be getting themselves into trouble with this beast system, but rather putting their energy into nourishing themselves and nourishing the earth around them and those around them, their families around them, and their friends around them. So that's the way that I certainly plan on taking this. I think I still have some big speeches left in me. I really have this desire to be a trumpet to the world. But if I'm going to trumpet a message, it's going to be one of love and compassion, and one of an inward journey towards an inner peace. That means that you're not at the behest of the wave of this system as it pulls you and pushes you in one direction or another. So that's the direction I'd like to take. I just want to go back to some comments by this very theoretical world. I noticed earlier on you said you've lived here in Durham, which is just the little town we're a few miles down the road. So that's nice. You'd said something else that I thought was about you were talking about the 8 inches per mile square. Just quickly, I don't want to go in and spend any time on that, but just for you guys to think about this. When we do the measurement, we take a ball, and we take a line off it here, and then we do also sandita or whatever these other kind of things. We do all these measurements, but what we never think about is that the ship is here when it starts at the top of the ball, and it's not that it goes down here 4,000 miles down or whatever, that, because everybody sort of says, that's that, let's work out what that is on a measurements thing, but they never account for the angular shift of the ship, and that angular shift, that angular change needs to be accounted for. That angular shift needs to be accounted for in whatever formula you do. But for me, it is a point of interest, and perhaps it's useful to someone who's sitting on the fence and so on. But in the same way, you can't make someone get off the fence. Only they can. It's up to them. Okay, so when that person gets off the fence, and there's plenty of information.
He wants the computer.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm going to lose this computer in a second. Let me just read some comments here. Can you not take the iPad for me?
Oh yeah, I could.
We have Luke with us, our older son, and he's got more tech than we do. This is his laptop. That iPad is his. Well, it was our family one, but we gave it to him when he went to uni. And he has a phone, and he's such a modern kid. He's bouncing between 3 devices all day long. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it really is I think it's a fantastic, departure for me anyway, to kind of transition from someone who's wanting to fight the beast to someone who's seeking to negate the beast and to set it aside and realize that it's not important and that I don't need the beast cities. I don't need the smart cities. I need some land, some seeds. Dave Murphy kindly offered me some seeds. And thank you for that. Not that you'll hear this, I'm sure, but, and some good people around me to form a collective of people with a common unity. I spent some time with a fellow truther a little while ago, who for me was still so caught up in the anger and the fear of whatever's coming down the pipeline, that it disables him from being in that space. It's like let's say you got you got some neighbors, and one of the neighbors, he comes around to your garden or comes to visit you, maintaining social distance, of course, and all he wants to talk about is sport. All he can think about is his local football team, and all he wants to talk about is his local football team. He's got nothing else to say. That conversation will eventually become tiresome, and you won't seek that person out quite so much. And in the case of this fear or fight or flight conversation, then if someone's wanting to stay in the fight paradigm, that's fine, but then their energy is being put into something that's quite angry, quite negative, quite disabling to the this higher consciousness objective that we may have for ourselves. Yeah, it's 3D. I mean, I didn't want to use that, but that's what was shouted to me from the back room. It's the duality. It's the kind of the yin, the yang, and it's not the narrow path. It's not the, and again, it's like, don't think that this is coming from a lack of courage or a place of fear. It's not. Are there challenges and difficult things ahead when you step outside of the comfort zone that we've all become so inured or embedded into? Yeah, of course, and they've made it so. You get your milk and your honey, just there it is. You just turn up at the supermarket, make sure you got some slave coins in your pocket, and you're good to go. And that's a very easy place to be, in many ways. And so too, my friends, is the anger. So too is the, I don't like, the way that the system is, so I'm going to seek to change it to what I think is right. Well, that's not going to happen. The only way you're going to have what you seek, I think, is to make it up for yourself, is to do it for yourself, to be a creator. And that comes in many guises. I mean, my ambition is a little bit like Martin Kenny's, to have land, to plant fruit-bearing trees that over years and decades can become a source of your good health, and even a means of trading with those around you for the things that you can't grow yourself. To have some land that is as far away as is reasonable and feasible from the system. Thus, you don't have the drones and the 5G inspector, the trace and trackers and all of that kind of thing going on in your world. The tax man and all of these beast apparatus, So that's my ambition, but it doesn't always have to be like that. It doesn't have to be like that for you, depending on where you are in your life trajectory. There are many ways to skin this cat. But I think that fighting the system or the cat is not going to, I'm going to watch and contribute to that where I can. I'd much rather be that person who receives others who are seeking, they have realized the game and they've seen the way and are looking for solutions, for ideas. I'd rather be a person who offers them that. Like in a say a religious setting. If you're an imam or a preacher, you can go and shout all day at the science department about your beliefs, but really most practiced preachers will know that the best results are to help those who come seeking guidance or information, because those people already have their eyes and ears open and are willing to consider an alternate route. This coronavirus is like the best thing that has happened to humanity in some ways. I'm horrified by the trauma that it's causing to people, but at the same time, it is providing an impetus greater than Flat Earth ever did for people to go, shit, no. And for some of those people, they will move through that angry phase and come to a point where they're like, okay, now I need to do something different. I've been putting it off, umming and ahhing, carrying along in my sort of, parking attendant job or whatever it is. And I've realized, no, I can't do this anymore. I need something else. What else can I do? Because the only two dogs in town, or the only two horses in the race seem to be anger and fear, fight or flight. And I'm looking for something other than that. So yeah, I want to be an exemplar. And again, thanks, Spark, for your comment, because it really reinforces my expression that we must, or I must, seek a higher approach, a more loving and compassionate approach to the world. Not the system, but to the beautiful souls that live here. And I care very much, and I have always cared. I went to war because I thought I was fighting communism. I went to war because I thought I was protecting my people. I stood in Speaker's Corner because I thought it was what humanity needed to begin to find out the truth of this deception of this world that we exist in. So I am absolutely about bringing people along, but at the same time, most preachers will tell you, don't go and bash a Muslim over the head. If you're a Catholic trying to bash a Muslim over the head, it's not a good use of your energy. If a Muslim says, look, I've decided that that branch of the faith department isn't for me, I'd like to try a different religion, then good, come and have a chat. And if you like what I have to say, if it appeals to you and so on, then perhaps it'll become a blueprint or a template that you might want to exemplify yourself. So you can't be an honorable and upstanding man until you've done all the work, or you've done the work on yourself. You can't be an example to be other people till you've done it. Which is why I was as a youngster, I was like anti-religion, because I saw so many preachers who were banging the pulpit on a Sunday, and on a Monday banging the secretary because she was fit. I think or embezzling money or all of these sorts of things. It's like, well, that's a great example of how we shouldn't be. How can you offer guidance to anybody unless you've really done the work yourself? You are going to be nothing less than, or nothing more than one of these pedophile priests. That's a bad example, but you're going to be nothing. You're not going to be truly embodying it yourself. And so what you offer is always going to be diluted, diminished, lacking in authenticity and sincerity for those who need to see your example and learn from it for themselves. So that's the journey, and I think I do respect. When we talk about the 3D and 4D and 5D, this is not to say, oh, I'm 4D or I'm 5D
they're
and
not bad
I'm
or good. They just are.
This is not about this is not about passing judgment, which is Andrew is right about the sort of the sheep thing, because we've all been in the flock, or we are all in the flock, and we are all humans. Every one of us are. I think every one of us are equally human and equally of the Creator. That might be a they live scenario or whatever, but for me, keeping it simple, I would say that we're all that, and for me to pass a judgment on somebody because they want to stay at home in fear or they want to go out in anger is not really not at all where my mind is at. It's not about that. It's about accepting that that's the nature of the yin-yang system. It's a push-pull. That's how it works. It pushes and pulls. It pushes and pulls.
Well, also we're not separate, are we? Actually, if we go back to flat Earth and the electromagnetic plane, then we're all connected. I mean, that's the point that we're at. Is that when we're in this belief system that we're not connected, and if we knew we were connected, then. And by knowing we are connected, by being your most loving self, you are helping humanity. You are helping each other because you are affecting the overall consciousness, which is your brothers and sisters. That's why it's important to do that work, to go inward and deal with your shadows and your darkness and your beast and purge it, and because that is going to affect those people that are still asleep. And the thing is that we have to remember that this beast that we talk about, or the system that we talk about, they know what's going on and they're prepared for what's coming. And this is not about, Dave and I have experienced this where we've learned about common law and we'll take a different route and we'll show them that they're wrong and this is how they know. It's a strong system, and this is going forward, and they know what to expect. They know the reactions. They know that with trauma, if you put more trauma on top, you're going to trigger the trauma. And what's the response going to be? Fight or flight. It's going to people who fight. So they've got that all waiting. The David Ikes, they're there to kind of pull the people who want to fight, and then they've got those people that are going to be fear. They've got the perfect television situation, masks and all the rest going for those people who need to do that. They are prepared for this. And so what are your alternatives? To be in one of those streams, or to go and be the loving, high vibrational self that is going to help humanity? It is going to affect humanity because we are fractally and electromagnetically connected. We are one. And that's how you make the change. It doesn't mean you're giving up. In fact, quite the opposite. And when I was listening to what Dave was saying is don't get stuck on this coronavirus. This is domino one.
Yeah, it's just
this
a tool.
is phase one. There's more coming this year. people.
Definitely.
So what are you going to do? Sit and fight
Stare.
about coronavirus and want to wake people up about coronavirus when there's more coming? There's more coming, and the system, the beast it knows and it's prepared. So what are you going to do about that?
And I think the more coming is going to create a trickle and then a flood of people who are going, heck, no, I need to do something different.
And then you need to lead those people in the right direction.
Because I noticed Spark was saying he kind of gets what I'm saying and so on, but and he wasn't directing this at me, but it's a bit selfish to just work on the self. And of course, it's not about just working on the self, but in the book, the Bible. We're instructed to build a house on firm ground, and if you build your house on sand, and that obviously in this case means a person who's still absorbing porn and a whole bunch of other things.
Chimes in the house.
Hey, Miss Chime, lovely to see you. If you're building a house on sand and shale, you're likely to struggle to keep that building up. However, if you build it on a rock, on something solid, which is the rock of your soul, the rock of your good heart, then you are likely to be far more successful in making that building grow. And trust me, my friend, when I went out in Flat Earth, the early 2018, starting to do activism, I thought, okay, so like most of us, in 2015, 16, like, gee, when this Flat Earth thing gets out, and it'll get out quickly, the whole world is going to change. That's what I really believed, and that's what I was doing, drumming up support in Speaker's Corner. And I thought, you get a huge audience of people willing to hear this stuff, because they were all sort of, arguing against this and the rest. But no, people are not hearing that. They're not ready to hear that, or they're not able to hear that. And I had to come to terms with that. It's a bitter pill to swallow, yes, but I had to come to terms with that. And I can't force anyone to think what I think and see what I see. I can't at all force them that. But if I, by my example, and Spherical said about leadership is different to someone who is in control. I have said this for some time. In fact, Roxanne and I fell out in Paris over this issue of leadership. I said, we need leadership. No, there's no leaders, no lead. Well, it's not like I want to be the Boris Johnson or Trump.
It's not about control.
It's not leadership. It's not about that. It's about example. So again, if I'm Rocky Balboa, the example I use, Rambo. If I'm him and trying to drum up an army of soldiers to go and fight against something, and my example is one of a slothful layabout who's absorbing all these negative energies, then I'm only going to spread that kind of energy around. That's going to be a house built on sand. Whereas if I am solid in my faithfulness, in my sincerity and my honor, then that's going to be the best example. So trust me when I tell you this, that if the BBC or some worldwide broadcaster was to give me the opportunity to spread the word, then the word that I would be spreading would be this. Wouldn't be go out and protest and beg your government to do something different. It would be this, and I would take that opportunity. I would take whatever opportunity to speak to people who could hear. I would take that opportunity with open arms. So I'm seeking that. I'm seeking and Andrea will bear me out. We sometimes disagree quite strongly over this because I have been like most of the people who are activists, like, we must change, and we must get everybody to see this and so on. But I've had to kind of swallow that bitter pill of realization that people are in different states of consciousness, and they've come here, some of them, to live through a particular state of consciousness. And if we pick on the 3D as that sort of first state, then it seems to me that at this time in the human story, the majority are pegged in at the sort of 3D stroke 4D perhaps, but mostly 3D, and I'm okay with that. I'm reconciled with that. Maybe it's eons, maybe it's centuries, I don't know. Maybe it's only a few years, but
in our time linear world that we live in, because obviously time doesn't really exist in the way that we perceive it.
But know that the majority of people are missing their sport right now. They're missing their entertainment, their pubs, their
they want
clubs,
life to go back to normal.
And the majority of them simply want that back. So whatever they have to do to appease the beast to get that back, I'll social distance, I'll quarantine myself, I'll do all of these things. Just give me my toys back. The majority of people are there. The minority of people are going to are going to seek the middle way. If you look at the yin yang symbol again, the boldest aspects, the biggest aspects of it are the white and the dark, the light and the dark, or so the majority of people are in this system are perhaps meant to be in that place. And would I want to go and stand in front of a crowd of football fans and say, hey, your football is a joke, what you're doing is damaging for your soul and stuff, and it's a waste of your energy and so on? Would I get a good reception there? I suggest not. If 10 people in that whole crowd have realized that this, and they're not comfortable with what they're doing and they're looking for something else, then they will go seek that something else. And when they go seek that something else, then they will hopefully land on voices who offer them something other than simply stomp your feet and demand that the Football Association charge less for the season ticket, or pay their salaries, but stop paying these insane salaries or whatever. That's very 3D. That's a very kind of, just tweak this a little bit for me and I'll feel a little bit more comfortable here. Well, it's always going to be a compromise, and it's always going to mean that I'm generalizing now, but it's always going to mean that you're going to sit in front of the sofa and wait for the next iteration, wait for your team to make it to the finals of the World Cup or the UEFA competition or whatever, and then cheer and boo when your team wins or gets tackled or whatever, and all of that sort of stuff. Well, that's where the majority of people are. I'm not upset about that. I'm just realistic about that now, and I just recognize that that's how this game works. So for me, my energy, my love, as I'm developing, look, I'm here talking, so I'm not the complete article. I'm developing, I'm growing, I'm learning,
this is where
and so on. And I continue to do this. And as I mature in it, as I evolve through it, then hopefully the message is refined and the audience is the audience kind of, if you like, or those that are interested in hearing, develops in line with that, and
aligns with it. Whilst Dave's talking and I'm seeing the comments and over the last few days, I have there is a Bible verse. I don't know the whole one. Dave mentions it a lot, but I'm not that up on my biblical text. But even the elect will be deceived. So don't for a second think that you know all the answers. And then what's going on here? We don't. We're still being deceived. And the only place you can find your truth is in your heart and is in your soul. So the more time you spend unearthing that, because trust me, part of this game has been them lowering our vibration and affecting that. And that's where the work needs to be done. So that you know the truth, your soul's truth, our consciousness truth. And let that lead you. But we are still being deceived as we sit here. And so we have to find a way forward. with the truth that we already know. But like I keep on saying, this year, this coronavirus, this is just the beginning. Cosmically, there is so much more to come, and our world is going to change in ways that even as we sit here, we cannot imagine. So,
but you can take the reins of that if you start to kind of realize.
And that's not for fear. Don't fear that.
You can take the reins of that. I don't know if Nicholas is still in the chat room. I didn't say hello. Nicholas is someone we've met. And I don't understand his fascination with Lucifer. To me, I mean, the Freemasons love Lucifer, don't they? He's the light bringer. He's the guy that they kind of hold, or he's the archetype that they hold up. And I don't know enough about all of those kind of Luciferian type teachings, but I do understand that Lucifer means, as far as I know, that Lucifer means the light bringer. But again, I think that's the light within the yin yang, dark and light. So it's like perhaps the antithesis of the dark, but equally it's still within a system in which you're giving honor to something lesser than God, and perhaps lesser than you.
Matthew 24, verse 24. Owen.
Hey, hi,
Thank
Owen.
you.
Lovely to see you. Lovely to see you. Have you got the ring?
Oh, yes, loving the ring, Owen, loving the ring. It's got the tree of life on it. It's so beautiful. It's something that I hold very dear to me, so thank you.
Yeah, we
Thank you
cherish
for
that.
that.
So no, I want to, because actually, Nicholas made a comment some months ago when I was here, and it was the first time I'd seen him kind of say that horn ghost and goat and all that sort of stuff, and Lucifer, and it does, honestly, it makes me feel uncomfortable. For some reason, I feel like since when was Freemasonry's higher, their higher being something that we was, and I think it's for me anyway, it's the realization that, God is within us. There is a creator of this world, a most high, and so on, and that emanates from somewhere, and perhaps it's within here, but there is to be no intermediary between you and the creator. And so to give the Bible says it well, and Jesus says it well, is that you should take no idols. You should hold no idols, which is partly why I felt, because at the time I used to be okay with the idea of a cross, and so on. But then I realized that that's an idol. I mean, it's an idol to 2 billion people on earth, not revered by the Muslims. They idolize other things. Not revered by the Jews. They idolize other things, deities or whatever. And I think that the Lucifer character is that. I understand that, we like the idea of light as a contrast to dark, because we think of light as good and dark as bad. And light and dark are both, it's not good or bad. It's just an essential part of nature. We have the night, we have the day, we have the winter, we have the summer. It is just the yin and the yang. It's the two polar opposites.
I mean, I think this comes back to, if there's fear of the dark, then I would question whether you perhaps need to just go and make peace with the dark within. And that doesn't mean that it's like forgiving your oppressor. It doesn't mean you say what they're doing is right. It means that you detach yourself from their power, and you shine a light on it. So, yeah, I mean, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, I'm seeing Spark comment. I've met, as I said, I've met Nicholas, and he's a nice guy, and but I'm not. Again, it's not like I want to be in judgment of that, or his inner stand, because I'm sure that he's only trying to do what is right. And I mean, in my rejection of religion, and my rejection of of all of those things was very much because I thought they were strong and they were and so I'm sure that he's only trying to find what's right for him or what feels. I just feel like the sort of choosing sides, the choosing the Trump team or the red team or the blue team or the Jesus team or the Muhammad team or the Lucifer team is again playing in that kind of 3D sandpit and choosing a football team that you prefer to support. I don't think we should support football. You can maybe watch the game from a distance and not be emotionally drawn into it. But you don't go, oh, you're an idiot for supporting Tottenham, or you're an idiot for supporting Manchester United. Wow, you get people to go, oh, you're a Liverpool supporter. Yeah, me too. Come on, and you put your arm around me. Well, that's bullshit. And that's what religion does. It creates these little clubs, cliques. And then within each of those cliques, little nuanced sub-cliques, and I think this is one of the tightropes that we have to walk. And in sort of moving out of the system or seeking a way out of the system, to create like a community outside of the system. It's one of the things that you think about as how do you create that environment in which we're not looking over the fence and going, oh, you poor sods, or you mindless sheep, or or look at that eco village down the road. They're doing this, and we're not. We're in this kind of that whole mindset is part of the control. That is part of the psychological warfare that we've been under since we were in junior school. They put you into club teams or into teams in junior school, and your team is going to compete against those team at sports day, and you want your team to do better and so on. And that's part of the the them and us kind of mindset. We are all one. We are all one humanity, but I can see and view the two football teams and the opposing football teams kind of fighting against each other without having to take sides or without having to pass judgment, but merely to understand that this is the program that they're running on.
Well, that's where compassion and unconditional love comes in. It's I think of even the system or the dark that's playing out here on earth, and it's about us having acceptance, because actually we all have dark within us too. I'll sit here today and say I know I have, and it's about accepting and forgiving and having compassion, unconditional love for myself, that I'm able to neutralize that or bring it in and integrate it and accept myself as a whole. And it's the same with the beast or the system here. Actually, the way that you take away its power, it's a bit like, I'll use an extreme analogy. It's a bit like the rapist, who rapes you. You have to, you hope that at some point you can actually forgive and have compassion and even unconditional love for that rapist, because that's what sets you free. When you remain angry or bitter or hurt or a victim to that rapist, then they continue to have power over your life forever. And so we have to accept the dark is part of us. It's part of this paradigm. It's part of it's an important part. It's the balance, and once you're able to come to terms with that, accept it, look it in the eye, integrate it, love it, have compassion for it, then you're able to disempower the effect or the power that the dark has. So it's an important part, and we all have it. It's a tough thing for Dave will tell you. He pointed out, when I've got those dark shadows within me, it's hard for me to accept that I have that within me. But once I'm able to accept it, it dissipates. It doesn't have that same power. The programming is taken down, or the knot is unknotted, and then I'm able to find peace with it.
Well, hi Gracie. Hope you're well. Yeah, I mean, Sparks really got his keyboard on fire right now. Yeah, this last comment was yes, it's clearly a part
Manchester
of.
United are not different.
No, I was only using the Manchester United
They're not
example of well, they are perhaps, I mean.
Depends on your heart's in resonance.
Really. Yeah, I mean, remember, a lot of the programming that goes on in our world is very benign. It's very mild. It's all good fun. Football and a bit of sport, and of course, I think that physical activity and some team sports and so on are cool, but I was just using it as an example of how people get to choose. They were encouraged to choose a side. And to your last comment, Spark, which is yes, this clearly is a part of the dark evil, but we surely have to try to crush it. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to crush it, my friend, it's going to be within you that you crush it. That you within you that you perhaps even not crush it so much as to see it, to recognize its effect on you, and to negate or mitigate, and to again seek that other way, because it's not, like the turn your cheek example in the Bible. It's not that you need to turn around and beat your oppressor, so much as you need to become yourself unoppressed. That you have to address the dark and balance the light within yourself. And then that example, again, I mean, not that I'm not I don't choose a religion, but just the example of what the Jesus story tells us is that, that's where I was going with that. I was going to say just where it's about turning the other cheek and living the example, being the embodiment of the Christ, of the higher thing, of the higher consciousness, and in so doing you defeat this system. Because you could either go along with it or fight with it, but you're in it in that way. Whether you're in it, whether you're fighting against it, whether you go and watch a football team and you boo the supporting team, you're contributing to the supporting team, to the opposition team, by simply by booing for it. So you can't complain about the game when you're willing to support one of the teams that are in it. And so I don't support neither the dark nor the light so much as I see them as just the nature of things here. And if humanity, I mean, by the way, I love the idea of humanity having this kind of Eden-like transformation and this higher, more heavenly earth existence. I want that.
But that's within,
I want that. But initially that's within, and if it's ever to be without, it's because individuals have over time have made those choices for themselves. So this system will never go away by petitioning it. It will only go away by people choosing something different for themselves, and by starving it of the very oxygen that it wants to steal from you. So if you want to beat it, the clever, remember, this is important, is that they've created everything, 9/11, Sandy Crook, Corona, flat Earth, and obviously the globe thing has, and all those deceptions have been going on for such a very long time, that they've certainly planned to, know that this awakening, this knowledge was going to come. And so how better to deceive you once more, but to provide you with an outlet to vent your anger and frustration at the system. And while you're focused on venting at the system, you're never going to focus on building your own garden within your own heart and on the land around you. So that's where I'm at with that, and I'm loving the exchange with you, Spark, and I hope that it's of use to you and to others listening, because I think this is the time for me. I've been quiet for a while now, for various reasons, but one of them being that I was like going through my own mental kind of transformation of how I proceed in this world, and us getting washed away by us in Flat Earth. I mean, getting washed away by the current events. Swamped by the tsunami of Corona. Has given me pause for thought to go, cheapers. We do need to do something different, and perhaps those 2020 apocalypse criers were right all along. And so I've been meditating in a way, or thinking and trying to have quiet time about how I am to go forward and what example I am seeking to offer to those around me. And I have to say that I feel more and more empowered by this idea of self-determination, rather than appealing to this rather unpleasant system of control that we currently find ourselves in. So yes, as I said, I would love for all of humanity to come along on the ride. I would love for government to become something that it isn't. But government is always going to mean mind control. And so, people are never going to be self-governing while they appeal to someone else out there, whether it be a religious leader, a scientific leader, or a governmental leader, or a banker, to enable their good life, their good heart. So that's what
Can I just comment? Ms. Chalmers said this is a time for us to do the inner soul work, I think that. Oh no, I've lost my train of thought. But I think that energetically or cosmically there is opportunities here for us to go and do that work, and if we are triggered, use those opportunities when you're triggered to go, what is that saying about my soul? What do I still need to focus on? That's been what's been happening for us, right? Is we've been triggered, and instead of going we may do that initially, but then going away and doing some of that introspective stuff. And Dave says, first he said government is control of the mind. Well, drop out of your mind right now. Drop out of your mind and go to your heart. The heart is where consciousness is. It's your connection to your consciousness. Go to your heart. Go and seek what's there. And if there is darkness, or there is something that gets triggered there, then that's where you have the opportunity to purge that stuff, or confront it, or forgive it, or find love there. And that will help the mind, because if the system is about mind control, then drop out of your mind. Go to your soul, go to your heart, go to consciousness, go and connect there. That will lead you. That will but we have to realize that has been programmed. Our mind has been programmed, and it will try and control this game that we're playing in. And Ms. Chime's absolutely right. This is a time cosmically they'd like you to spend your time fighting and thinking about what's going on with coronavirus, but actually there are some beautiful things happening in terms of what's happening in the luminaries and the energetic stuff that's around in the moment, and it's there for your advantage. Use it because it will help you moving forward.
So I want to remind folks that I don't know if you've seen my speech that in Oxford a few years ago. But that was me showing my anger and rage at the state of being. And there are many of these eulogies, or not eulogies, that's wrong word, these speeches that I've given that haven't necessarily been caught on camera in the public square. And in addition to that, I spent a lot of time in chat rooms, banging the drum, as it were. And my overriding feeling, aside from, feeling like, this is what I have to do, my overriding feeling was one of tension. I was in a state of high tension. Sometimes you'll have an argument with a person or a disagreement with a person online, and that disagreement can run for days. And during that time, I am often going over the argument and being caught up in the vexation of the challenge of that, and there's not a lot of people, maybe a few hundred people on this entire plane that could claim to have done more street activism than me. So I'm not someone who's a stranger to that level of antagonism and tension. And what that brought me in the chat rooms was a never-ending stream of people who were more than willing to continue the argument. And I realized with the flat earth sort of activism was that this wasn't just simply a case of saying, hey, look guys, there's 3 or 4 super evidences here that discount the idea of us living on a spinning ball. Should be quite easy for you to see. Go away, do the research yourself, and come back next week, and we'll celebrate our new information, our new knowledge. The reality is that the majority of people who've taken an egoic position on their favorite football team will never hear anything bad said against that football team. When their favorite footballer tackles someone hard, fouls them, no, that was a really good tackle. That wasn't a foul. If it was, and I could spend the rest of my life arguing with people over these sorts of things, but I can assure you that it actually affects my inner vibration, and this is my experience. It affects me inwardly. It's like a crushing. It's like a furnace of anger that's constantly bubbling and constantly looking for fuel to keep that furnace running. On the flip side of that, or alternatively, I could go, well, if I'm seeking to give a message of love and compassion and commune, and I can draw, or I can reach other people who have made similar strides in their journey, then that's where I would prefer to be. There will always be the firebrands. There will always be, those who are going to do the yin-yang, push and pull, anger and fear. And so the journey will continue. And so people will eventually, over time, perhaps, be brought to that moment in their own story, in their own life, where they go, I'm tired of being in fear, or I'm exhausted from being in fight and anger. I'm going to look for something else. And it's those people who are looking for something else that I'm hoping to share ideas and thoughts with.
There's some interesting comments there from Ms. Chan and Mark and Mel, but I want to just...
Ms. Chan says, guys, putting this identity... Bluntly, we have about 4 years of this battle, we need to stay strong, and always in the heart we will be victorious. Yes, I think we do have some time. We do have time. I think one of the things that they like to fear us, that we don't have time. I think we have loads of time. I think that as this system gets tighter and tighter and tighter, perhaps it gets more and more tricky to get out. But I think you'll always have that that way out if you seek it, and if you really want it, you will have that way out. And the more of us who can get out, and that can offer a soft landing for those that are seeking their way out, then surely what could be higher than that? Because for heaven's sake, guys, if people aren't coming awake to the idea that they're being deceived through this 2 months of nonsense that we've been living through, if they aren't able to see that, then there's nothing that I'm going to be able to say at this point that's going to shake them out off their sofa and out of their football supporting slumber. The left, right, or you hear it in the American politics as well. It's like, oh no, it's only the liberals or the lefties are saying this, or the right. They're trying to characterize this whole thing as simply within the left-right paradigm. And as I've started saying to people, at the moment, I feel like everything that we are offered, everything that we see, is like this left side and this right side of a 180-degree arc of information, and you can choose left, center, or right. That's up to you. What I'm saying is that there's 180 degrees of information behind you, or ideas behind you, that they will never let you see. And it's that vista, that 360-degree vista, that I'm saying we need to adopt if we are to truly liberate ourselves, to become one with Source, to find our soul journey. Because think about it, if this is a fallen world or a Satan's world or whatever kind of way you want to characterize this, then it has been doing this game far longer than we've been around here in this body, and it has designed the game so cleverly so as to keep you trapped, entranced within it. And I'm saying it's time to leave the nursery. It's time to set out and plant get your own roots in the ground, a nice solid foundation, build your house on that. I mean, coming back to what Spark was saying earlier on, about being selfish, I have put my family and my little baby boy through quite an ordeal to take this journey. And that is a very painful thing as a father and as a husband. My older children, Lukey, he's like, all I want is a home. All I need, we were talking about new moon intentions. It is today new moon, or last night. So happy new moon, and I hope you've set some good intentions for yourself. But he was like, all I want is a home and stability. And really, that's what I want to offer my family. I want to offer my family stability and a soft place to be. I do. But I've had to walk this uncomfortable road in order to do that. You could say that was somehow selfish, but actually it's, I've needed to make significant and unpleasant compromises. I'm even having to ask people for money, something that's extremely goes against the grain. It upsets Andrea every time I do it. It's a horrible, an unpleasant road to have to walk. But I'm doing this with the intention of finding something else. Initially, I thought it was that we could change the system with this truth. And now I realize that it's because we have to change ourselves with this truth, that we will build a solid foundation and a solid, perhaps a solid environment in which to nurture new lives, new opportunities, new way of being that maybe over time becomes the normal for the new normal for most people. But for the right now, it does need courage and outliers who are willing to be at the vanguard of that. And there are people who've been doing this for years who are well ahead of me in that conversation, that journey, and credit and respect to those people. So it's not like we're the first or anything like that. People have been talking about this for a long time, and people have set up eco villages or whatever. They are trying to do this kind of thing. So, but it needs to be built on solid ground, and needs to be I think on the basis that the way that we affect change is to be the change ourselves, not to demand that someone else change or the system changes. Because if you've ever voted, if you've been around long enough, you'll know that we ask for change. We protest for change, and really, what we get is loose change, small change, very little change in a way that we think is right. So yeah, prayer works. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing more praying in this last while, and talking to the higher, to the creator, to the self, if you like, but and expressing into ether the things that I care about, the things that matter. And praying is like a form of meditation, I suppose, and a form of self kind of enabling. Which, speaking of that, someone mentioned much earlier on in the stream about James True, and he is worth looking up if you haven't heard any of his podcasts. James True, True. He's got some fantastic insights and ways of looking at things. So I would commend him to you.
And I just go back to Dave saying he put his family through this, but actually I think for both of us, since we detached from the system, whether that be our home in the material sense, our home and income in the sense of doing a job, and all those kind of things. It's actually, we've been able to go inward, and sometimes we've been forced inward because of the circumstances we've been in. But it's actually been a process of finding home, a different kind of home, a spiritual home, a soul home, and actually, I think, although we want those roots and to be grounded, equally we have found a peace, a home that we wouldn't have discovered if we were still living in or having to carry out the system's requirements. And so I think it always seems like such an impossible task to be able to detach from these things for most people. But I think if you haven't already, my advice would be to start doing that in small ways. Try and seek out ways to not rely on the system.
It's about self-reliance, really.
Yes,
it's about self-reliance. It's about becoming
so actually
increasingly
it's about being
self-reliant.
selfish. That selfish word is something that we've been programmed to be wrong, by the way.
Yeah.
Actually, selfishness is a very important thing. Self-love, self-care is very important because, like I said before, we're actually all one. And by being that, by loving yourself, you're actually affecting the next person. Because, by the way, when I was standing in the Tesco's line of stacks, everybody's so sad, and not looking at each other and so separate. And I think that's part of the social distancing and masks and whatever, is to separate us even further, because we are one. We are one. We're not separate beings. And the only thing I could do to get through it was to kind of intentionally try and look at people, even though they weren't looking at me, and go, I love you. I love you. I obviously didn't mouth the words because I would have looked like a little bit of a nutter. I mean, they're looking out for every little detail of people acting strangely. And so just trying to give my heart vibration to people, because actually that's what social distancing is doing. It's stopping our heart vibration from being close to each other, because we are one. So looking after yourself and doing the work on yourself, and is very important right now.
Yeah, Spark took it. He wasn't. Say, please understand, I wasn't talking to you when I mentioned about being selfish, brother. As I said a couple of times, you are far from selfish. Thank you for saying that. You have put yourself out many times, but I also agree. I think we said in another comment is that what I was doing was useful in a sort of past tense way, and trust me, if when we picked up the van, and I need to big thanks to Jason of the Disbury family, and if anyone's got a few £100 that they could throw at Jason to help him pay for that van, I would very much appreciate it. He would too. He's drowning in financials, and anyway, so. And if you get in touch with me, I could always put you on to Jason, or you can get in touch with Jason of the Disbury family directly. Much credit to the man, I think he's still, for what it's worth, and I hope I'm not saying anything embarrassing, I think he's still, very much in that kind of material way of seeing things. And I'm obviously, he's the kind of friend that I'm going to be saying, hey, but there are other ways of doing this. And so back to Spark, I think again, if I got given any platform that I could go and talk to people on, I would more than likely take it to bring this message, even if it was to people that didn't necessarily weren't anywhere near this line of thinking. And if I mean, you can ask Andrew, when we picked up the van, I was like, okay, so I want to start doing some street work. I want to take the van around. I want to continue doing this. And then, of course, as we got bashed around by Corona, we realized that, wow, there's no one listening to this right now. And this is not going to gain any real traction. And of course, now you can't even meet in groups of 2 or 3. As you know, Jason was arrested himself, and a few others have been arrested recently just for gathering. So I definitely want to continue to be a voice. And the bigger that my voice becomes, the more important imperative it is that I am on a solid footing, that whatever crap. Do you remember when that dude, what's that guy's name? The guy who did that hit piece on me.
Oh, Mr.
Chiswick. So you remember when Chiswick did that hit piece on me that Eric Dubé put on his website, saying that I'm an agent and so on. I was able to kind of confront that face on and say, bring it. Bring anything you want. Have a look. I'll show you what. Yes, I've been at war. Yes, people died as a consequence of the actions that I was made to take or required to take. And yes, I did a book tour.
Royals, and no, we don't
yes,
know the Royals personally.
Yes, no, I don't know the Royals personally. And yes, Harry of Windsor, or whatever his name is, has a copy of my book because I gave it to him. But that, but I that I'm willing, I want to have, I'm more than happy to have the spotlight shone on me. Yes, I've done in my lifetime, I've done things that, I wouldn't do now. But again, this is part of my.
It's accepting your darkness.
Yeah, this is part of my patina, friends. This is part of what makes me me, and a part of what makes my message perhaps more valuable. Because, as I said earlier on, I've been to war, so I'm not a guy who's. I've been to war, and I was honored for my bravery in war. I've stood in the pit at Speaker's Corner, and I've shown that I have the courage to do those sorts of things. And now I'm bringing
Mark Melvin said it's Megan's favourite book.
I know. I wasn't sure who Megan was, but now, yeah. Especially the part about where I lose my virginity. That's. I'll just drop that in there. That's happened to me. That happened to me during those 2 years that I wrote the story about. So I felt it was important that I include that. And a lot of people, ladies, have enjoyed that little part of the story line. Anyway, so really, it is my patina. I've done things that but if they come out and I have to face them, fine. But it's like, okay, I was on very shaky ground then. My soul was on shaky ground. And now I'm hardening that ground. I'm firming that
Well,
ground
know
up.
better,
And
do better, and also forgive yourself. I mean, this is the thing: forgive yourself, but you can't unless you're prepared to accept that was, that was something a choice you made, based on your soul at the time, with the information or the the place you were. So it's like, forgive yourself. I say this to Dave all the time. We have to have compassion for ourselves, and we have to be kind to ourselves. We have to love ourselves, because you cannot give that to someone else if you don't feel that for yourself.
yeah, you can't. And so it is having, in that, and actually, like this conversation that I'm having with you guys makes me feel good inside. Yeah. But the conversation that I was having with people, let's say I was going into the Globe Earth Society and giving them a dressing down about the nature of the lies that they believe in. I would be dealing with their anger, and I'd be dealing with their kind of like, ah, you idiot, and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, that's hard on the soul, and that's hard on me. And I'd be much more interested in the two or three people that came out of the audience and said, hey, I'm interested in what you've got to say. So it's that conversation. And if I get the opportunity to stand up and say, by the way, the Earth is flat, or it's this electromagnetic. If I get that opportunity to do that, I will take it. I will take it. I was saying to Andrea last weekend, I wish I was in London. I'd love to get down to the speaker's corner there and get the horn out and blare and messages and out there and so on. I would I still feel that kind of energy to do that, but it's, what message am I giving? It's the message that I'm giving that matters. And what I'm not looking to do is being in a place of contention or tension. And the fight, which is my natural kind of place, because I've never really been one to shy away from the bully, is I haven't told this story very much, but when I came out of the army, I traveled to America and England for about a year, and then I went back and got into the kind of job thing, and I was in the health club industry, and we were partying and cocaine and this and that, and then all of that crumbled. The business failed, and I was driving around in a BMW, and I couldn't make the payments for 6 months, and I'm hiding from the bank, and eventually they repossessed the car from me, and I end up in Cape Town with 5 rand in my pocket, which is 10 pence, 20 pence, something like that. Very little money, and an opportunity to stay with someone, like a girlfriend I'd known from my years in the gym business. She gave me a place to stay for a month, and I was desperate for money, and I got offered my first night in Cape Town. I went. She took me to a pub nightclub place, and it's all hot and sweaty, and I've got my shirt off. I'm dancing, and I'm super fit at that point, and she's friendly with the head bouncer, and she says, my friend's looking for some work, and can you offer him some work? And I've never really been a fighter. I've never really enjoyed the fighting, but I took this job on at the roughest club in Cape Town, and I damaged my hands and my soul a bit, because the amount of fights. Well, after a year of fighting, and I actually lost my job at that place because I belted an off-duty narcotics cop who was being a bit of an arse. And so I lost my job there, but I got taken on at another bar, more upmarket kind of place, where there were no fights. I think I had 3 fights in 8 months or something, which I was giving 3 or 5 fights a week.
He was in only his early 20s, just by the way.
Yeah.
Post-war,
Yeah.
finding his way.
Yeah. So I'm not a guy who's averse to the fight, is what I'm trying to tell you, But I was programmed towards that, and we live in this dog-eat-dog world, or we currently exist in a dog-eat-dog world, and so it's only natural that people are going to be in that state of fight or flight. So not quite sure why I shared that with you, but
Can I just
I
say
just
something about the whole dark thing, is dark and light thing as well? From my understanding is we certainly for our soul to be able to grow and transform, we have to go to the dark and have the contrast. I mean, Dave and our journey, it's been the tough times where we've made our most transformation. It's where we've had to confront the dark that we've made our most transformation. So it's not about removing the dark. The dark is there, it has a purpose, and you are able to then make the choice based on the information you have, or the feeling you have. That was another thing I wanted to say earlier, is we have to start trusting our feelings. So if in your body something feels wrong, then it is, and if it feels right, it is. Feeling rather than thought. Obviously thought we can use for action and planning and all those kind of things, but as we are the Trinity, we need to, those things need to work. There needs to be an alchemy or an integration of it. But yeah, we need the light and the dark within us, and we need to have gone and tested the dark to be able to know the difference. Otherwise, there would be the point of our soul here. We'd come here and we would just all hopefully spend time in the light. But for there to be this soul awakening, you have to have had the duality.
Yeah, maybe this is just this is just like a play pit for your soul to come and learn some of these lessons. And so, in a way, we need the dark. And absolutely, we need the dark. We need the winter. Without it, there wouldn't be new life that could spring from it. We are encouraged to love our enemy. I don't. I need to rephrase that. To love your oppressor is I think one of the kind of tricks perhaps in the religious texts. Because I don't think we should love the oppressor. We shouldn't be oppressed. So you can only not be oppressed if you choose to walk away from the oppression. But if, just say, you've achieved this kind of little heaven for yourself away from the system, and then what you do is you throw poison darts over to the system and say, oh, I hate them, they're terrible, it's dreadful, it's all this. Well, not only is that going to continue to keep that darkness churning in your soul, but it's going to spread that darkness down the line. And in the case of, say, growing up in South Africa, where you were born into a system of apartheid, of separation, of segregation between the colors, and a view that black people are this and white people are that, then it's very easy to see why a 5 or a 7-year-old child might have already adopted that mindset, because they've simply absorbed it from the vibration of those people around them, from the people around them. And I say, well, then, if I'm saying, oh, I'm this loving kind of higher-minded soul, and yet I'm in the fight, and I'm standing there every weekend shouting the odds at the system, then my boy Alexander is going to follow my lead, and he will see that as his way forward. And I think if we're to nurture a garden, then that garden is anthropomorphized by our children, and we bring to life that energy. We continue that energy through our children. And if you put GMO seeds in to get GMO crops, and if you put poison, angry, or fearful means, and this is what you see with children. Children I saw a little girl sort of shrink away from me the other day, where a few months ago when we were here, she was more than willing to kind of engage and so on. But now this little 3-year-old is shrinking away from a stranger because he might be a threat to them. So what are we doing by staying in the screen's argument of fear and anger? We're passing that down through the generations. And we talk about how the vibration that your grandma carried is passed through her eggs to your mother and to yourself. And so if you're carrying, no matter how pleasant a demeanor and facade you put into the public sphere, but inside when you go home you're like all wrangled up and all twisted up and so on, I can assure you that vibration is going to be spreading. Hence why the expression, the sins of our fathers. We are carrying the vibration of our parents, of our forebears, of our environment, the soup that we dwell in. And we have to decide to either leave the slowly boiling frogs in their pot and hope others jump out and join you. At the same time, yes, offering to people a little kind of light and saying, hey, there is a hole in the pot, there is a way through, there is a way out. But until you show people that by your example, by your lead, they're never going to, perhaps may not never or ever discover that for themselves. So I hope
Kingdom of God goes from generation to generation. While you were talking, it made me think of James True was doing a session on Christianity, and he was talking about Christianity in the sense that it operates now, and that there is this this good and evil, that there is this separateness of good and evil, and actually that's what starts us believing that we are separate, that good is bad, and the evil is bad and the good is good, and that's the only way you will seek redemption is if you are good. But actually we're both, and actually if you think of that on an electromagnetic way, there is the negative and the positive. It's required. You have to have both the negative and the positive. It's not just positive. Electromagnetically, this earth plane would not exist if there wasn't, the
negative, positive, and neutral.
Yeah, exactly. Neutral.
Earth is the neutral.
Yeah.
And you get back to the earth. Oh, someone asked me earlier on, I hope you're doing lots of grounding. Well, I thought, you know what, to answer that question, I'm going to show you my feet.
Yeah, his feet are they've got their own souls. Oh no, they're quite clean. They're quite clean.
They are very clean, actually, because I've been walking around on the grass here, so they've cleaned themselves up, but they are solid because I'm barefoot all the time. I'm barefoot pretty much all of the time. And I try and be outdoors as much as a lot. And I say this merely to encourage you, sun gazing and earthing, neutral. Get into the neutral, because you're either in the, as Rand was saying, you're either in the red or the blue. You're in the positive or the negative, and both of those are charged states.
I was talking about James True, and he's talking about Christianity, and that we're told we come down into this paradigm where they say there's good and evil, and the only way you can be redeemed is if you well, I've spoken to him. I'm just telling you what I said to him.
I see. Good and evil. There's good and evil. There's gold and silver. There's good and bad. Yeah. There's left and right. But there's also the neutral
as well, which is the all. We need all.
Yeah. So it's a neutral. It's like, okay, I'm neutral about it. I don't need to take a position on which team is best or whether or not they overpay the footballers or charge too much at the gate. I don't have to have a view on that. It is what it is. I choose not to engage. I take a neutral position. And an earther position. An earther is the same word as ether, just reformed. And ether is also has got the word heart in it. I mean, all of these things, we know heart is earth. So all of these things are connected, and we are, I think, meant to be seeking out a neutral path. I hate war, I hate death, I hate tax, I hate that people are dying young, 50, 60, 70, 80. This is young in my view, but we don't realize it anymore, but people are dying so young because, and much younger than 50, of course, because we are being poisoned, we are being toxified, mind, body, and soul, and that is hard to swallow, and it's something that really fueled my distaste and anger for this system. It really fueled that, and that's the intention of it. That's the intention of Building 7. That's the intention of Sandy's Crook, is to fuel fear and anger. And so by choosing the middle way, friends, I am not condoning, accepting, or for this. We are eternal beings. Perhaps we recycle, perhaps, and as we recycle, we change the world towards a more godly type world. But it's not going to be through the aegis of banging on someone else's door and demanding that they behave differently. Only you can behave differently, and by that example, encourage perhaps others to follow your lead, to follow your suit. But so not for a nanosecond should you think that I'm like, oh well, okay, all these horrible things that go on. And actually, when I'm thinking about it, I think even the child trafficking, the Pizzagate, all of that stuff, Harvey Weinstein, all of that is almost like some of it will be happening, and some of it will be almost manufactured or highlighted to kind of create that, like, this is the place that I'm going to fight. This is the place that I'm going to stand and say no more, and this and that and so on. It's really designed to keep you in that left or right paradigm, rather than ever finding a neutral place. I want the world to change. I want the world to be a better place, but I know that it's only going to happen if it starts with me. And in that way, we will find our way to a higher vibration, a higher way, a more loving, compassionate, gentle, kind world, in which life is honored and respected. So, yeah, I think I've kind of spoken enough for one day. It has been a while since I spoke, hasn't it? And I have missed it, but at the same time, we've all got so much going on in our lives. There's so much happening, and I needed to be thoughtful about where I wanted to go and be more clear. And I'm glad that I've had this conversation. I'm glad that I've been tested and challenged with a few things, because it helps to clarify where I'm at, and it also helps me to feel more solid on the ground that I'm laying, the foundations that I'm laying for the future. And I am about humanity. I am about a higher way for us, and a better way, and a more loving way. So that's really the goal, but it has to start with my foundation.
Our son wants us to come and play knife cutting on the board.
Okay.
We've been allowing him to use a knife to cut fruit and vegetables, and that's what he's calling us to do right now. So I'm going to say goodbye and send lots of love.
I'm going to... Thank you, Andrea. I'm going to drop a... I don't have the link to hand. I should have been a little bit better prepared. I'll put in afterwards, but I'm going to just suggest that if you are able to help Jason out, he went out on a limb to buy that camper van last year in order to take it on tour, and I think that he probably, well, it doesn't matter what he thought. The fact is that he did a wonderful thing by that his act of generosity and so on. And he's done a wonderful thing in letting me use his camper van these last 2 months. I hope to return it to him soon. But yeah, I mean, if you're in a position to toss him a few coins, would be greatly appreciated. We'd had this idea of doing more activism with the van during this period that I had the van. Of course, that hasn't come to fruition for the obvious reasons. And we thought that as part of me doing that activism, we would use it as a springboard to generate some income to cover the cost of the van itself. It's costing him £800 a month at the moment, and I'm eternally grateful to him for letting us. In fact, Alexander, other than the bed we had at Good Heart Way, this is the longest he's had in any bed in his lifetime, is in Jason's camper van. And the first 3 nights we were here, he kept asking to go back to the van to bed. That's it. That was his play. And in fact, if he's feeling uncertain or whatever, unsettled, he'll ask to go to the van because that's a place of safety for him. So thank you, Jason and Carol. It is by the grace of the goodness of the people that have followed this channel and the efforts to awaken our fellow man that we have survived this long. As you may know, my family have distanced themselves more than even the social distancing requirements from me. And then they don't support me at all because I have rejected their way, the system way. So I've even had to borrow money from my student son, who's got a student loan, a student grant, a loan that I've had to borrow money from my son, my 18-year-old son. But and my sister-in-law, as I said earlier on, is even though she doesn't at all want to hear the stuff that I have to say, she has helped us out a bit financially. But it really, in the main, we have survived since last September October, the first night at Charlotte's place, and who kindly took our cat from us and still has our cat 8 months down the line. Starting from all the way back then, we have basically been living on a wing and a prayer many days, as we did when we set off from Lincoln a week or so ago. When we set off from Lincoln that morning, or that we woke up that morning that we were leaving Lincoln, we still didn't have anywhere to go. But our faith has been bolstered by the generosity, the kindness, and the support, verbal support through the words on this channel, but also critically through financial support from people who I've never met, but who've heard the message and have been compelled to support us. A lady called Jo saw my feed yesterday, and she said she would like to send me some coins for the grocery money, and I'm again extremely grateful to that. There's people in the chat room here who've sent me money. I would be literally homeless and penniless. I am penniless. But I mean, we would not have survived this time without the support from yours. I know we're all going through difficult times, and we don't know where things are going to lead us and so on. So people are naturally maybe a little bit cautious about how they use their money. And some people who've sent me money in the past, I know, have actually got no income at the moment because their livelihood was based on maybe being able to get out and do things, and they're not getting money now. So if you're in a difficult financial situation or a difficult situation, I'm compassionate for that. And I hope that it works out for you. You find your way through that. At the moment, I'm not in a position to offer anybody any money or be a Patreon of anyone. And the best that I can do, the energy and the love that I can give through this message, through this soul evolution of the self, this solid foundation that I'm seeking to build, I hope will repay people in the fullness of time. And for those, I saw Josh was in the chat room, him and Charlotte and their baby Ember are the kind of people that and Mez and Luke in Canterbury are the kind of people who maybe in time will be able to take advantage of becoming a part of some kind of community in a physical sense. This is an online community, but in a physical sense, and I would love to build something like that in future and continue to give back to humanity in whatever way that I can, that is right for me, that enables others to grow, others to find a way that works for them. So hopefully it's an energy exchange that is balanced. Where we stayed with Sharon, initially we didn't have any money at all, and she and Ian were paying for the groceries, and she of course let me hook up to her house electric supplier. So I was extremely grateful for that, but I also know that in return I was giving her and her son an awful amount of peace of mind as to how to navigate these turbulent, choppy COVID waters. So it kind of sucks to have to ask, but at this point in time, I continue to need a little bit of financial support. In time, when I have the land, and I will get that land, I will turn that into a productive piece of land. And plain permaculture is someone I've spoken to a few times, and I'm very much about learning what I can from guys like that about getting the very best out of nature, because nature is a source of infinite abundance, despite what they try and tell you. And so if each of us was given what we deserve, what we're entitled to, a piece of land which we could, fertile land that we could throw seeds on, then we can more than adequately take care of ourselves and the community around us. But at the moment, I'm not quite there, and you are the community around me right now. So I thank you for your support here, just coming to listen. Thank you. And hit the thumbs up if you so choose. And if you can, at the moment we don't need a lot of money. It's really just about having some food. Once I give Jason the camper van back, we'll see. But we're in a sort of we feel like we're in a sort of a landing. We're in a flight path towards something wonderful, towards something amazing, and we just need a little bit of help to get to that point, and hopefully that kindness and generosity is repaid to you in any appropriate way. So what I'm going to do is type. Oh, thank you, Gracie. Dave, you guys offer many riches far greater than any dollars and cents can quantify. It's touching to know that, Gracie, and I have come across people. I have met people who, well, actually, two people I mentioned earlier on, Josh and also Mary Jane, were both people who sought me in the physical world after hearing what I had to say. There are others too, Dave, Trev, others who have come to say hi and kind of press the flesh, because they've resonated with the message, and that honors me so much. Thoughtful, smart, intelligent people who hear what I have to say. In fact, someone who's a well-known voice in our community, or Dave Moore, or allegedly Dave. I didn't know this, but he actually invited me to speak at the event 202 that they'd organized. But because my phone was busted, I never got that message. So that's a kind of an indicator that I feel like I'm, along with all the things I've been talking about, is an indicator that I'm kind of on a good track, on a right track towards something. And of course, Jason, he was like, we would like you to go on the Euro tour and stuff, and that, although that is obviously a part of a sort of firebrand activism kind of thing that I'm trying to mold into something more spiritual, more loving, it is an indicator to me that this is of use, and I hope that my good thinking, or my cogitation over how we go forward, how, when you look at what's going on, you look at the chess game that's being played, and you think, okay, so how are we meant to character, how are we meant to go forward, and how am I meant to do the best that I can, then I have to say the things that I've been sharing with you this last hour or so are, at this point in time, that a move away from antagonism and tension, and into a place of love and peace. So I've said enough, and I will type in my my PayPal account. Pardon me. I'll type in the address of the PayPal account if you want to use PayPal. If you can, please do that. Or if you want to, just use a regular bank account for a transfer, then I can put my email down and you can email me and I'll send you the bank account details. I don't want to end on that note because, again, I don't really take any pleasure in asking people for coin, even though I give this energy to the world free and gratis. I don't do it because I'm hoping for a super chat. Not that I can get super chats on this channel, but, or even what I want them. But I'm not doing this for that. The need for material wealth is beyond me now. I don't have an interest in that. I have an interest in ensuring that my family are taken care of, that we have a roof over our heads and we can feed ourselves. And at this point in time, because I don't have productive land, and I'm not willing to be a slave in the system, then I have to ask. So I'm grateful for anything you can do, but it's not a condition of getting this information or having this friendship, this relationship. So thank you, and thanks to all the hearts and the love, and love to all of you, all out there. Oh, can I just? It's turning green. Look at it. Hey. So Lalo, I'm just gonna put. What are we using? Trinity's the.
Trinity's the at Gmail.
The at gmail.com. So that's PayPal. PayPal.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to put a link up, but it's, when you don't have the, it doesn't let you do it on a phone. And we've only just had laptop, and to be honest, my head and heart has been in other places. So.
Yeah, but my email is trinityforman@gmail. Thank you so much for staying for this long chit chat. And trinityforman@gmail.com. Yeah, I mean, love and good. Catch a banana. You want to cut a banana?
Let's open it.
Guys, I'm going to have to go. It's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for your thumbs up. Thank you so much for your support and love. And be well. Just stop staring at the screen, because they want your attention. They want to mess with you. We're going to cut the banana now. We're just going to say goodbye to our friends. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Lots of love.
Bye.